Hi everybody, it's Ashley from Discover Art Therapy. Welcome back to another video where we explore creativity as a form of self-care. I'm a professional Canadian art therapist, and today we are going to explore intuitive watercolor painting. Now let me get one thing straight, this is not going to be a class on the technique or the skill of using watercolor, okay? Not in the traditional sense anyway. We're going to be exploring watercolor as a form of emotional regulation, using watercolor as a way to check in with our internal world and a way to express our deep senses, our desires, and figure out what brings us joy. I want to say one thing right off the bat here. You can get your supplies from the dollar store. You don't have to get anything fancy, okay? But I'm going to walk you through all of the different watercolor materials that I have in my studio that you might want to try for yourself. I want to set you up for success, so first and foremost, you need a piece of watercolor specific paper. If you use a piece of paper that is too thin, like a printer piece of paper, it's not going to hold the water in the right way. It's going to crumple, it's going to wrinkle, it's going to rip. So you need something that has a little bit of weight to it, a thicker piece of paper. And so specifically watercolor paper is what is going to be the best. You can get your hands on a cheaper version from the dollar store, or you can get a graduate level from the fine art store. It doesn't matter too much for this exercise because, you know, we're not hanging our art up in the Louvre. This is just for exploration of our emotions. I've cut mine into little pieces. I used a bigger piece of watercolor paper, and I always like to share with people, you know, if your supplies feel intimidating, change them. You know, if that piece of paper was too big, make it smaller. Make something bite-sized so that you feel like you are invited and excited to try the art and not overwhelmed. So I've got little pieces of paper here. Additionally, I have a beautiful brand new Canson graduate watercolor paper book. Now I'm going to try to use this in the future, but I just wanted to show you that the first page I explored some of the techniques that we're going to be talking about in the later videos here for somatic and intuitive watercolor painting. But a book like this is really lovely because it allows you to just pull it out and practice and then close it when you're done. And it is an invitation to keep coming back and fill up the pages as well. So you can get yourself a watercolor book. There are a number of different types of watercolor. So these are called watercolor cakes or watercolor pans. Mine is not an expensive brand, and I have used it a lot before, so it's a little worn out and the case is a little bit broken. But these are nice entry level. They're not always super vibrant, but they do the job really quite wonderfully. You can get these at a dollar store, you can get these at the fine arts store, and they're really nice because you just use water to activate them and put them onto the page. So there's no extra steps, no extra paint palettes needed, and it all goes back in and you close it up and you can put it back on your shelf. So those are really nice entry-level way of getting into the watercolor medium. There are more expensive levels, and I feel like the expense relates to the vibrancy of the paint that you're gonna get. So this is called Koi Watercolors. I love this brand. Their watercolor is in the same type of cakes and pans in this travel case. So it comes and it closes, it opens, and there's even space for a little bit of a sponge and a brush in there, but they're super vibrant. They are just so vibrant and lovely. And this is the neon set with the metallics. And I've also had this version for about 9 years. Now this is a newer version of the one that I've had for 9 years, but the one that I've had for 9 years, honestly, they're just so vivid and bright, and yeah, these last for a really long time. So they're a little bit more expensive, but I would definitely say if you're gonna get yourself some watercolors, these are really lovely. Next up is one of my favorite watercolor mediums. These are called Watercolour Inks. If you've watched any of my Instagram videos, you've probably seen these before. They come in little bottles of ink. They're so vibrant, they're so potent. They don't act the same way as a traditional pan does, so you can just use the ink right from the bottle. Most of these bottles do come with an applicator itself, so it's one of those like squishy ones, and you can pull it up and drop it right onto your page. You can also drop that ink into a paint palette and use a brush from there, but I love these because they are so vibrant, and if you know me, I love vibrant art. So if you're feeling bold and needing, the expression of color, watercolor inks are a fantastic option, especially when we're tuning into our emotional expression through the colors and the materials. Next up is the traditional watercolor in a tube. So I really like these because they're very customizable. But you'll need a paint palette to go with them. I like this one. It's a ceramic paint palette, but when you use the tubes, you put a little bit of paint in here and then you bring them to life by bringing in some water. So whether it's a sponge or a paintbrush, you mix water in. When you use the tubes, you're going through that grounding process and that relationship process to your art materials, right? You're setting them up. They're a little bit different than just opening up a pan and just adding water and going. These provide that extra step. Sometimes that's a nice choice to make. You might want to ground into the relationships to the materials before you make art, and watercolor tubes are definitely the way to go for that. Let's talk brushes for a second. I feel like for intuitive watercolor somatic painting, we don't need to get fancy, okay? You don't need expensive brushes or anything like that. These ones are a set from Michaels. They are the Zen set by Royal and Lenical, but that doesn't really matter. I just like them because they really hold my watercolor paint very nice. And I've got all sorts of different shapes and sizes there as well. I love these water brushes. They come in all different sizes. This one has a thick, a medium, and a little one, and they actually hold water in their own tank. So you fill them up with water in this tank here, and then as you paint, you gently squeeze. So it allows you to have fresh, wet paintbrush the entire time you're using it. You can experiment with how hard you press and it allows more water to flow and your color gets washier, or you just keep it as is and it acts as a normal paintbrush. So this is a watercolor brush pen, and that is another fantastic option for you. Let's talk about tape for a second. So masking tape or painter's tape is a great way to make a border around your page. It's not too sticky, so it's not going to rip your paper when you peel it back up, but it is sticky enough that it's going to create a border or a boundary or some kind of a container. You might like this if you're making sections on your page or you're making a border around it, like I already said. I do that quite a lot, and this is one of my favorites. Of course, you can cut it in half, you can make it thinner, and customize it to your need. Sometimes people like to use washi tape. So this is another tape that is not too sticky, but usually it's quite decorative. Washi tape is normally a little bit more expensive than painter's tape and comes in a variety of different colors. So you might not want to waste it if you're going to be peeling it off anyway, but this might provide a little bit of fun in the process. Washi tape. Some of the other tools you might need are paper towel or a rag. This is built to wash off and dry off your brushes from the color you were just using, and you might use paper towel or a rag to dip and pull up any puddles of paint that you have on your page, and so that might be a nice tool for you to have. And last but not least, water. We need lots and lots of water, okay? I say bring 2 vessels of water to your art desk. One is for your dirty brushes and one is for when you change colors. So first give them a wash in this one and get the color off, and then dip them in the fresh one before you use another color of paint. This is like an artist's trick to have lots and lots and lots and lots of water, because dilution is the solution to pollution, and the same goes for dirty brushes. So having lots of water around is very helpful. So this is just a friendly reminder, you don't have to go out and buy anything above your means. You can buy something pretty inexpensive at the dollar store, or you can go and have some fun at the fine art store and find something you really love. But it doesn't matter about the quality as we jump into somatic, intuitive watercolor painting, because really it's just about tuning into ourselves and having some fun through the process. I hope this was helpful and informative for you to get started with picking what type of material is going to work best for you. And continue to follow along, because we're going to have 12 different somatic, intuitive watercolor techniques to follow. You don't have to identify as an artist, you don't have to make anything extremely beautiful. All we're going to do is use this particular medium in a therapeutic way to explore our inner worlds and have some creative self-care time. And before you go, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so that you can stay notified of all of the different therapeutic art videos that are going to be coming your way soon. Get your watercolor painting supplies ready, and we'll meet you in the next video where we're going to start and learn how to express our emotions through intuitive painting. See you soon. Thanks for watching.